Y News with Angelo Castro III, William Theo, and Darlene Basingan.
Good evening. The case of 14-year-old Reynaldo de Guzman alias Kulot is now being perceived as a case of mistaken identity based on the DNA test conducted by the Philippine National Police. Here's why from Onokson.
Hindi siya si Reynaldo de Guzman, hindi siya yung anak nilang mag-asawa.
Yung natagpo ang bangkay na lumulutang doon sa ilog na may 30 stab wounds, hindi siya. Sino yun, sir? Can you identify?
We don't know. We don't know. So we'll have to ask around if there are reports that a boy his age was missing in other places, not necessarily just in Nueva Ecija.
Based on the DNA test conducted by the PNP Crime Laboratory, the cadaver with 28 stab wounds was not 14-year-old Reynaldo de Guzman alias Kulot. The real identity of the dead body found in a creek in Gapan, Nueva Ecija is now a huge puzzle for the Philippine National Police. The PNP says the Provincial Police Chief of Nueva Ecija requested to have the dead body undergo a DNA test. The PNP then took DNA samples from Kulot's father, Eduardo Gabriel, and his mother, Lina de Guzman, through buccal swab.
The accuracy of the test is what is the standard for a scientific investigation. And if you were asking for numbers, that is 99.9% accurate.
With the result of the DNA test, the PNP still considers Reynaldo a missing person and still being searched for by police. The PNP is now puzzled over the source of the information that the dead body found in a creek Gapan was Kulot. Authorities are still not discounting the possibility that some individuals are trying to sabotage the campaign of the government against illegal drugs by misleading investigators. However, the Public Attorney's Office, or PAO, stands firm that the cadaver was Kulot. According to PAO Chief Attorney Persida Acosta, it was Kulot's mother herself who identified the remains by pointing at his body markings, such as his warts and scars. Acosta claims there might have been mishandling in the conduct of the DNA test that resulted in the mismatch of DNA results of the cadaver.
Ang DNA, reliable yan kung yung specimen ay same specimen. Kapag nagkaroon po ng mishandling of specimen, pwedeng hindi po matama ang findings. Pero ang mga magulang po ni Kulot, sila mismo ang nag-identify sa cadaver at may nakita silang parang palatandaan o balat, parang ganon.
According to the Public Attorney's Office, the PNP's move to make the incident an issue of mistaken identity will not affect the case it is now handling. It says the identification of the mother to the identity of his son has more weight. On the other hand, the PNP says it is in no position to say that Kulot was orphaned just because his DNA did not match to his parents. The police say it is now using as basis the statements of his parents that the dead body found in Gapan was the 14-year-old Reynaldo de Guzman. Mon Hokson, UNTV News and Rescue, Camp Crame.
Justice Secretary Vitaliano Aguirre says the group sheltering the witnesses in the killing of Kian de los Santos and Carl Arnaiz could possibly be liable for obstruction of justice. Roderick Mendoza will tell us why.
Justice Secretary Vitaliano Aguirre is appealing to the groups which have custody of witnesses in the killings of Kian de los Santos and Carl Arnaiz to let the NBI investigate them. In an interview with Get It Straight with Daniel Razon, Aguirre insists the groups and the DOJ share the same objective to uncover the truth behind the killings of the teenagers.
Na sana ay bigyan natin ng pagkakataon ng ating National Bureau of Investigation na maimbestigahan ito ng malaliman para mapalabas natin ang katotohanan.
The group Rise Up for Life and Rights has taken custody of Thomas Bagcal, the taxi driver whom Arnaiz allegedly robbed, while Caloocan Bishop Pablo David is sheltering 3 witnesses in the killing of De Los Santos. Secretary Aguirre says the DOJ is ready to secure Bagcal and his family.
whether you are the victim or ikaw ay ginamit lamang o nagpagamit lamang sa ibang grupo, ay lumabas ka and we are willing and we are ready to provide you with a protection of the Witness Protection Program.
The Secretary doesn't want to end up filing charges for obstruction of justice against the groups who are keeping the witnesses. He says DOJ will ask the Senate to summon the witnesses to its probe tomorrow.
Kung hindi pa magkakaroon ng access ang NBI sa kanila, then that will be the time that we will move na legally.
So kayo po ay inclined na magsampa ng obstruction of justice kung hindi pa rin pakikinggan ang inyong mga apila?
Pwede po. I will cross the bridge when I reach it.
Aguirre further said it's okay for him if the church wants to keep the witnesses as long as the NBI is not prevented to conduct its investigation. UNTV News is still reaching the groups for comment. Roderick Mendoza, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
Former Bureau of Customs Commissioner Nicanor Faldon is now detained at the Senate building. As Faldon has been cited in contempt, his stay under the custody of the Senate will depend on the decision of the Blue Ribbon Committee. Here's why from Nel Maribuho.
The Senate Blue Ribbon Committee was on the middle of its investigation on the Shabu shipment and the alleged existing TARA system in the BOC when former Customs Chief Nicanor Faldon arrived. Faldon directly went to the office of the Sergeant-at-Arms where he would be temporarily detained. Faldon will stay at the Senate facility until he decides to face the investigation of the Blue Ribbon Committee on the alleged widespread corruption in the Bureau of Customs. Blue Ribbon Committee Chair Senator Richard Gordon personally visited Faldon to convince him to face the hearing but to no avail.
Dito na lang, ginalang naman niya Senado, hindi naman siya, ayaw niya lang mag-testify dito at ang gusto niya mag-testify doon sa Juzgado.
However, Senator Gordon says the former customs chief still needs to answer several issues like his alleged acceptance of 100 million peso worth of welcome gift. Senator Panfilo Lacson meanwhile notes the Senate will not coerce Faldon to talk.
I cannot force him to testify and the committee will not force him kasi we are trying to avoid the spectacle na meron kami dinadrag sa session hall para mag-testify.
Lacson says he is now readying charges he will file against the former customs chief and his colleagues.
Sabihin na natin kompleto na yung documentation ko, no? Pinafinalize na namin and we are about to draft the complaint that I will lodge before the Office of the Ombudsman against Faldon.
Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, Senate of the Philippines.
Meanwhile, Customs broker Mark Taguba appoints Manila International Airport Authority Assistant General Manager Alan Capuyan as one of those who accepted grease money and meddled in the operations of the Bureau of Customs or BOC. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
Several personalities being linked in the 6.4 billion peso Shabu shipment from China and the alleged existence of a so-called TARA system in the Bureau of Customs or BOC faced the 8th hearing of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee today. One of them is retired Colonel and now Manila International Airport Authority Assistant General Manager Alan Capuyan. Customs broker Mark Taguba claims Capuyan is the alias Big Brother of one of the groups he transacted with last March of this year for the faster release of his shipment.
Nakatulong ba siya sa'yo sa paglabas?
Yung grupo po nila, nakatulong po.
So, mas mabilis lumabas?
Opo.
Taguba says the group of Big Brother was the third one he sought help to after he experienced problems with the Davao group. However, Capuyan denies the allegations but admits meeting with Taguba together with a certain Tita Nani.
Because of certain inputs, I do recall one thing. It's not you talking, it was Tita Nani. And in that conversation, na-mention yung nagbigay ka ng 5 million. And I even said, I doubt it that the Vice Mayor will even get it. It could be going somewhere else. So, how can I commit something to him if we only meet once?
On the other hand, the father of the Mark, Ruben Taguba, who has been working in customs for a long time now, says aside from the problem on the BOC system, the government should also look into the consignees of cargoes.
What is the purpose ng mga player na napakaraming consignee. Gusto ko sanang i-address nila yan. The moment, yan ang corruption, yan ang talagang smuggling.
Committee Chair Senator Richard Gordon, meanwhile, says he remains unconvinced by the explanations of the personalities being linked to the alleged corruption in the BOC.
I think ang malaking papaliwanag si Maestra Campo. Ang daming beses binanggit sila ni si Maestra Campo at saka si Big Brother.
The next hearing on the issue will be held on September 19th. Several other personalities will also be summoned. Meanwhile, Senator Risa Ontiveros calls for the resignation of Department of Justice Secretary Vitaliano Aguirre. In her privileged speech today, Ontiveros says Aguirre has allegedly violated the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for public officials and employees. The Secretary has allegedly plotted the filing of a case against the Senator with the Volunteers Against Crime and Corruption. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, Senate of the Philippines.
The Senate Ethics Committee has given Senator Antonio Trillanes IV to submit his counter-affidavit in line with the ethics complaint filed against him by Senator Richard Gordon. Joanne Nano tells us why.
The Senate Committee on Ethics and Privileges began hearing the complaints filed by Senator Richard Gordon against Senator Antonio Trillanes IV. The committee chairs and Senate Majority Leader Vicente Sotto says the Senate can push through with the hearing as the complaint has sufficient basis.
The complaint is sufficient in form and substance.
However, Senate Minority Leader Franklin Drilon questions the Section 5 of the ethics complaint.
In point of substance, we are submitting that the committee cannot look into this issue as it happened before the term of office of Senator Trillanes.
The committee has ordered Trillanes to submit a counter-affidavit to answer the complaint within 10 working days.
I respect the decision of the Ethics Committee. I will submit to the process. I will face it wholeheartedly because I am confident I did not do anything unparliamentary.
The ethics complaints stem from the heated exchanges between Trillanes and Gordon during the Senate's investigation last August 31 on the 6 billion pesos shabu shipment. Gordon filed a complaint against Trillanes for what the senator claims as Trillanes' improper conduct, in which the Magdalo member accused Gordon of seemingly lawyering for Davao City Vice Mayor Paulo Duterte and Attorney Man Scarpio, who were being implicated in the shabu shipment scandal.
Dapat maingat talaga kami sa mga sinasabi namin, sa kapwa namin lalo na. It is unparliamentary to question the motive of a fellow legislator.
Sotto says the committee might release the results of their probe in the said ethics complaint in the next 2 months. Joanne Nano, UNTV News and Rescue, Pasay City.
Malacanang believes President Rodrigo Duterte has enough evidence against Senator Antonio Trillanes IV on his alleged offshore bank accounts and questionable employment of consultants. This evidence, Malacanang believes, can be used as basis for filing formal complaints against the lawmaker. Here is why from Rosalie Cos.
He has been at it against me, my son, and my family since election. Tapos na yung kampanya, I thought all the while na ano talaga politika. Pero ito, he's bent on destroying me. So I destroy him or he will destroy me.
President Rodrigo Duterte is determined to reveal the questionable acts of one of his primary critics, Senator Antonio Trillanes IV. The president says he has been holding the evidence against the senator on his alleged bank accounts in other countries. He also has evidence on the alleged employment of Trillanes of several consultants for his Disbursement Acceleration Program or DAP.
Kung anong nakuha niyang basura, itong akin, hindi itong basura. All I have to do is to get the goods on him. But matagal na yung hawa ko, but medyo sumusobra na kasi.
Malacanang is confident that the president has enough evidence against Trillanes, and this is enough to file charges against the lawmaker.
Simply that whatever it is, that he will want a stop to this apparently wanton accusations that are being recklessly cast around. He may come up with substantial evidence that will effectively put a stop to these things.
Meanwhile, Senator Trillanes says these allegations are only made up. He adds he has already signed a waiver for the Anti-Money Laundering Council to check on these accounts. In line with this, he also challenged the president to do the same to investigate on his alleged undeclared bank deposits.
Paratang ka sa akin, pumirma ako ng waiver, nagparatang ako sa iyo, 1 taon mahigit na iniiba mo yung usapan. Marami kang sinasabi na, sige buksan nyo, hindi pwedeng boka-boka dyan. Kailangan mong pumirma ng waiver. Kung matapang ka, kung hindi ka korap, pumirma ka ng waiver kagaya ng ginawa ko ngayon. Pero alam ko na hindi mo yan gagawin dahil duwag ka sa katotohanan.
Rosalie Coz, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacanang.
In other news, 3 more incumbent justices of the Supreme Court are to testify in the impeachment of Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno. Complainant attorney Larry Gadon says the said justices are willing to attend the House investigation even if they are not invited. 3 other justices have previously signified willingness to testify in Sereno's if the Congress will summon them.
Kiusap sila na huwag mo ng pangalanan dahil na baka sugurin sila ng media, no? And hindi sila handa sa ganung bagay.
Anti- and pro-Marcos groups flock at the libingan ng mga bayani today, marking the commemoration of the 100th birthday anniversary of former President Ferdinand Marcos. Ray Pelayo will tell us why.
Groups showed support and dismay to former President Ferdinand Marcos at the entrance of libingan ng mga bayani in Taguig City this morning. Today is the 100th birthday of the late president who was born in Sarat, Ilocos Norte on September 11, 1917. He was the president of the Philippines from 1965 to 1986. He was highly noted for his declaration of martial law in 1972 that lasted until 1981. Pro-Marcos assembled earlier than the anti-Marcos group. From a few, the anti-Marcos grew in number, flaring up the tension. The police was quick to prevent a more violent clash, though anti-Marcos supporters were aggressive. After less than an hour, the anti-Marcos group moved out of the area. One of them, former Bayan Muna Representative Nery Colmenares, believes the former president shouldn't be buried at the libingan ng mga bayani.
Anong klaseng tao kayo, sabihin ng international community? Meron kayong February na celebration sa pagpabagsak niya sa EDSA. Tapos meron kayang araw na nagse-celebrate ng birthday niya, hero pa.
Halos lahat mga senior citizens na. So alam namin kung ano talaga si President Marcos noon.
Some prominent personalities were spotted in the ceremony at libingan ng mga bayani, including former President, now Manila Mayor Joseph Estrada. Ray Pelayo, UNTV, News and Rescue, Taguig City.
Ilocos Norte Governor Amy Marcos admits asking President Rodrigo Duterte to declare the birthday of former President Ferdinand Marcos as a non-special working or special non-working holiday in Ilocos Norte. The governor made the admission in the unveiling of the historical marker of the late president's statue in the Marcos Ancestral House in Batac, Ilocos Norte. The Lady Governor thanked President Duterte for the declaration as it signifies that although controversies have tainted the name of the late president, he has remained a hero for the people in the North. President Rodrigo Duterte visits Marawi City this afternoon. It is his fourth visit to the war-torn area. Images of the president show him distributing food packs and watches to the troops. The Armed Forces of the Philippines reported this afternoon that they were able to secure the bridge near the area of Bangolo. The bridge is now open for troops entering and exiting the place. The battle in Marawi remains fierce but is now confined to 1/4 of its 1-kilometer grid square. Next on Y News. The Department of Transportation to receive 1.5 billion pesos for its public utility vehicle modernization program.
The House of Representatives passes on final reading the proposal to postpone the Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataang elections.
And the Department of Foreign Affairs intensifies repatriation efforts for Filipino victims of Hurricane Irma in the Caribbean.
One News will be right back.
The House of Representatives passes on final reading the proposal to postpone the Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataang elections, or the House Bill number 6308. During the voting in plenary today, 212 lawmakers approved the passage of the bill, 10 voted against it, and 1 abstained in the voting. In the version of the lower house, the lawmakers seek to postpone the Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataang elections until May of next year. The proposal also allows incumbent barangay officials to remain in a holdover position. Meanwhile, the other version of the bill remains pending in a Senate committee. In the said version, the Senate wants to postpone the elections until October of 2018. The Department of Labor and Employment appeals to the Senate to hear its position on the proposed 4-day work week. Leslie Longboen will tell us why.
The Senate sets to tackle the proposed 4-day work week after the lower house passed the bill in the third and final reading. The Department of Labor and Employment, however, has expressed disagreement with the passage of the proposed 4-day work week. In Kuya Daniel Razon's interview with Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello III on the program Huntahan, the Secretary says there's no longer need to pass such law.
Meron ng existing department order. Department order number 02 of series of 2009. Under this order of the Department of Labor, allowed ang mga employees and the management to agree on a compressed work or a flexi work, whatever their decision will be. So meron ng ganung arrangement.
Meanwhile, an occupational specialist says long hours of work, especially when standing for a long time is imperative, have bad effects on health.
Pag hindi kumikilos sa isang posisyon o sa isang lugar,
hindi mapakali.
Stationary, you have stagnant posture, no movement of the muscles, no circulation of the blood. You have accumulation of all the acids and the conditions that will lead to pain in the back, pati sa legs.
The working class, on the other hand, has mixed opinions on the matter.
Siguro mas okay yung para more time sa family. At least, di ba, mas mahaba yung makakasama mo yung family mo.
Para sa akin kasi yung 8 hours na trabaho, parang kumbaga may pahinga ka pa doon eh. Kung gagawing 4 na araw yung trabaho, parang sa 4 na araw, napakahaba ng trabaho mo.
Secretary Bello says the lower house did not consult the Labor Department before passing the bill, so it appeals to Senate to hear their position first before coming up with a decision. The Senate still needs a counterpart bill to have the proposed 4-day work week be passed into law. Leslie Longboen, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
The House of Representatives will host the 38th ASEAN Inter-Parliamentary Assembly this month. Discussions will focus on how to solve criminalities in every member country. Criminalities affecting all member nations will be highlighted in the event. Grace Casin will tell us why.
More than 300 delegates from different countries around the world will join the 38th ASEAN Inter-Parliamentary Assembly, or IPA, which will be held here in the Philippines. The Philippines will once again host this event as House Speaker Pantalon Alvarez is the incumbent president of the IPA. Among the issues that the Assembly will focus on is the problem on illegal drugs and terrorism.
What they can do is that to come out with a law in the respective countries na i-strengthen yung mga border patrols na wala makapasok.
Yung sa illegal drugs natin, during dun sa aming IFOCOM, dun sa Conrad,
nagkakaroon na ng exchange of informations. Nagkakaroon na kami ng exchange of information, and pati din, wag lang yung sa ating bansa, kahit yung magkakatabing bansa.
Among the members of the AIPA are Philippines, Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Thailand, Singapore, and Vietnam. Also present in the assembly are the observing countries like China, Korea, Canada, the European Parliament, and the Russian Federation, among others. Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, House of Representatives.
Meanwhile, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Economic Ministers and its dialogue partners target substantial conclusion of China-led free trade deal by the end of 2017. Rosalie Cos explains why.
The ASEAN economic ministers and their 6 dialogue partners, including China, South Korea, Japan, India, Australia, and New Zealand, will submit their final offer for the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, negotiations next month. The chairman of the 2017 ASEAN Economic Ministers meeting, Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez, says before the end of 2017, a substantial conclusion for the RCEP is expected.
Agreement on the broad parameters of what will be the content, the level of liberalization, the timing, percentage inclusion, the value-add portions of the agreement, and other provisions.
The negotiations include 90 to 92% tariff elimination in the traded goods. Lopez did not deny that the negotiations between the 10 ASEAN member states and 6 free trade agreement partners is a big challenge.
Sabi nga, work in progress marami. Ito nga, critical stage yung ngayon na malinaw itong mga guidelines na sineset ngayon ng economic ministers sa negotiating team. So, hopefully, sabi naman ng mga ibang FTA partners, sige, babalik muna sila sa kanilang constituents. Hopefully, pagbalik nila talagang ipakita nila na they're willing to work with us.
ASEAN Deputy Secretary General for the Economic Community, Dr. Lim Hong Hin, meanwhile says everyone is considering what should be agreed upon since every country has its own level of economic development.
Different parties have different priority. They also have different sensitivity. If we were to actually be able to get everybody on board for swift conclusion, we have to understand and appreciate their concern and how we can actually build that in.
RCEP aims to intensify the economic relationship and the trade and investment activities of the ASEAN member states and their free trade agreement partners. RCEP negotiations have been ongoing since 2013. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue, Pasay City.
Philippine Coast Guard leads interagency field training exercise tagged as Bakluran Bantay Bayabayin in 0117 that focuses on maritime security and law enforcement against weapons of mass destruction. Aiko Miguel tells us why.
About 100 personnel of various government agencies take part in the Bukluran Bantay Baybayin 01-17 interagency field training exercise, which began earlier this morning. The said drills aim to measure the capabilities of the concerned government agencies in addressing various problems involving weapons of mass destruction. First to be tested was the capabilities of the participants to detect chemical weapons inside a shipping vessel.
Ang weapons of mass destruction kasi, there's so many forms There's so many forms. Hindi lang yung nuclear weaponry May mga chemicals yan, biological, radiological forms
The said field exercise also aims to train personnel of concerned government agencies in coordinating with one another and in implementing mechanisms for the preparation of any possible maritime threat. It also aims to improve Philippine authorities' security operations.
Importante talaga yung actionable intelligence. And these are the tools that would validate the suspicion on the presence of precursor chemical elements of weapons of mass destruction.
One of the activities will be the sea drill in Puerto Princesa, Palawan, whereas authorities will intercept a target vessel entering the Philippines maritime border. The interagency field training exercise will run until Friday, September 15. In line with this, the Defense Threat Reduction Agency of the United States government donates weapons of mass destruction detection equipment to Philippine authorities. American authorities also vow to help in upgrading the Philippines' communication and surveillance equipment, as well as its facilities and shipping vessels, like those in the National Coast Watch Center. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
In other news, President Rodrigo Duterte appoints Department of Agrarian Reform Undersecretary Rosalina Bistoyong as officer in charge in the agency. This following the Commission on Appointments' rejection of Rafael Mariano as DAR Secretary on September 5. Mariano was the last left-leaning cabinet member of President Rodrigo Duterte who did not get the CA nod. Bistoyong is DAR Undersecretary for Support Services. Meanwhile, an agreement was signed today between the Development Bank of the Philippines, or DBP, and the Department of Transportation, or DOTR, in Clark City in Pampanga, in line with the government's Public Utility Vehicle Modernization Program. Joanano will tell us why.
The Development Bank of the Philippines, or DBP, and the Department of Transportation, or DOTR, entered into an agreement today. Under the agreement, the DBP will allocate 1.5 billion pesos for the implementation of the government's Public Utility Vehicle, or PUV, Modernization Program.
Program assistance to support alternative driving approaches, or PASADA, financing program, will provide qualified borrowers the means to acquire brand new public utility vehicles under a fleet consolidation and management model.
The agreement aims to help PUV drivers and operators to comply with the policies of the new program without being buried in debt.
We want is to form for all the operators, or the jeepney operators, to form themselves into a consortium para mas matibay din yung financial capability nila, as well as yung service nila to the public.
The loaned amount can be used for the construction of facilities such as garages and terminals, as well as the purchase of equipment for the operation and maintenance of PUVs. To avail of the said financing program, cooperatives and corporations should have registration with the Office of the Transport Cooperative. Transport Groups, meanwhile, says the said program would not be burdensome if the DOTR would also provide assistance individual drivers and operators.
Kaya lang kami tumututol, walang tumututok sa amin. Kita nyo naman po, kabi-kabilang pag-uwelga ng mga transport group dahil alam nila, mapipace out yung mga jeep.
However, DOTR Secretary Arthur Tugade has once again argued that the PUV modernization program will not be a burden to jeepney drivers and operators.
It is not designed to phase out the jeepneys or the jeepney business. It is actually designed to strengthen, to guarantee the profitability of this jeepney business to move on and go on.
The government targets to launch the DBP Pasada in October, in which 700 to 800 prospective borrowers might have the opportunity to borrow money to purchase new vehicles for their livelihood. Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Following the official opening last Saturday of the first ever online singing competition of Wish 1075, fans can watch starting tonight the Wish-exclusive performances of the first batch of Wishful 20. Leslie Longboa tells us why.
Good evening, Wishers. You are now tuned in to the biggest and hippest online singing competition in the Philippines, Wishcovery.
The first ever talent search of Wish 1075, Wishcovery, has finally aired on the digital space. Last Saturday, the public witnessed how the unique online singing competition was conceptualized.
That's the reason why we also introduced Wishcovery, not only to give chance to professional singers, but also to those that really are aspiring to be known in the world of music.
The pilot episode also featured the search for the Wishful 20 from the on-ground and online auditions. The resident reactors of the competition were also presented. They are Philippines King of R&B JR, vocal coach Annie Quintos, and music producer Junji Marcelo. 70% of the scores of the Wishful 20's performances will come from the reactors. Meanwhile, 30% of the scores will come from the public's pulse through power viewing of their favorite Wishful. The Wishful 20 is divided into 4 groups. One batch will perform every week, and candidates who will make it for the next round will be announced every Wishcovery episode to be aired every Saturday. Viewers can watch the Wishclusive performances of the first batch of the Wishful 20 on the first YouTube channel of Wish 1075 starting 9 in the evening tonight. The official counting of YouTube views will be until Friday at 12 noon. The first ever Wishcovery Grand Champion will take home 2 million peso worth of cash and contract, a brand new car, and a house and lot. Aside from these prizes, the grand winner will also have the opportunity to be known worldwide.
Well, the only thing that would make Wishcovery different from other singing competitions is that it is one way of introducing our Filipino singers not only to the Filipinos, but introducing our talent as Filipinos all over the globe. Those that will win in our Wishcovery will be part of our world tour that will actually showcase the talent of not only these singers who will join us in the world tour, but also the amateur singers that will win in this Wishcovery contest.
Leslie Longbowen, UNTV, News and Rescue, Philippines.
The Office of the Civil Defense or OCD, Pag-asa, DSWD, Interior and Local Government Department, and other concerned agencies held a meeting earlier to discuss repatriation on the onset of typhoons Lani and Maring. The NDRMC advises residents in flash flood and landslide-prone areas to stay alert and monitor official announcement of their respective local government units.
O patuloy yung makikipag-ugnayan natin sa ating lokal na pamahalaan sa pangunguna ng ating Regional Office of Civil Defense. Pinapaalalahanan natin ang ating mga kababayan na panahon na kailangan natin na magmatsyag para sa kaligtasan ng bawat isa.
The OCD has once again reminded local government units to stay on alert and follow the Operation Listo Protocol. The Department of Social Welfare and Development as well as the Department of Health are now preparing food packs and medicines for distribution to residents who might bear the brunt of Typhoon Lani and the LPA. The Department of Foreign Affairs intensifies its repatriation efforts for Hurricane Irma victims in the Caribbean and assists those in the United States who would be affected by the said hurricane. According to DFA Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano, 136 Filipinos stranded in the British Virgin Islands have expressed their desire to be repatriated. To date, 4 personnel from the Philippine Consulate General in New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Chicago will also be joining the team from the Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C. that is now in Puerto Rico waiting for the go signal to proceed to Tortola. The team will be bringing emergency relief supplies and make arrangements for repatriation of the stranded Filipinos. The Secretary also commends our kababayan for keeping the bayanihan spirit alive. Many Filipinos have reportedly taken the initiative to reach out to their neighbors, co-workers, and friends and open the doors of their homes, share provisions and medicines, and even Wi-Fi access.
Coming up on Y News. Evacuees crowd shelters in Tampa as Hurricane Irma continues to batter Florida state and shifts westward.
The United States marks 16th anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks.
And 4 new teams are ready for action as UNTV Cup Season 6 sets to kick off tomorrow.
More from Y News after this break.
The UNTV Cup Season 6 squadron continues to grow in number. Bernard Dadis will tell us why.
Four teams will debut on the UNTV Cup hardcourt as the new season kicks off. The fresh teams include the Kawa Enablers, Department of Agriculture Food Masters, DOH Health Achievers, and PIDEA Drug Busters.
Maganda yung bigyan ni Kuya Daniel dahil talaga nabibigyan nga ng chance yung mga servant ng government servant, no. So, na makilala sila.
Nagpapasalamat kami na binigyan kami ng slot ng UNTV kay Kuya Daniel, kay Boss Jerry, kay Kume. Atoy, maraming salamat sa inyo.
Ang number one intention namin is mapalaganap, hindi lang sa Department of Health at sa iba ding mga kabataan, ang palakasan at isang magandang estratehiya para sa kalusugan nating mga Pilipino.
As a coach, sinasabi ko rin sa kanila kung ano yung makakaharap nila mga player. So, sabi ko nga sa kanila, hindi biro-biro yun. Watch out for PIDEA, lalaban to.
Returning to the league this season 6 are the PFE Firefighters, Ombudsman Grab Busters, Senate Defenders, DOJ Justice Boosters, GSIS Beauties, LJ Builders, two-time champion AFB Cavaliers, and Judiciary Magis, Season 5 second placer Malacanang Kamao, and defending champion PNP Responders. UNTV Cup Season 6 opens tomorrow, September 12, at the Smart Araneta Coliseum. Bernard Dallis, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Those are the reasons behind the news, September 11, 2017. I'm Angelo Castro III.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am William Theo.
And I'm Darlene Basingan, because we need to know.
We will always ask why. Thank you for watching.
Why News.